Okay, so today we're going to be talking about number lines and inequalities. Make sure this is number 2 in our math binder. Remember, number 1 was all that vocabulary that we did yesterday. All right. Yesterday in our vocabulary, we defined inequalities. We're going to go back over that definition in a little bit. But for right now, guys, I just want to recap number lines. All right, y'all have done number lines before, but let's just write down some things that we want to make sure we remember. Things to remember about a number line. Things to remember about a number line. All right. Now, the number one thing, guys, when I'm putting these numbers on a number line, for one, can I just put them wherever I want? No, so order matters. All right, the other thing is, can I, put two numbers really close together and then put the number, way far down? No, so we need to make sure that our numbers are in order. So let's say order matters. Order and spacing, because don't they all have to be spaced equally? Mm-hmm. Spacing matter. All right, order and spacing matter. So we want to make sure that they're in order. Now, does that mean it has to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6? No, it could be 2, 4, 6, 8. It could be 5, 10, 15, 20. It could start with -5. Then what would come next? 0. Awesome. -5, 0. Then 5, 10, 15, 20. All right. Oh, awesome job. Good job. Some of y'all caught that. Ooh, I'm impressed. Okay. So we just want to make sure that we keep them in order, and we want to make sure that they're spaced equally. So that doesn't just mean our numbers spaced equally, 2, 4, 6, 8 by 2s or by 1s or by 5s or whatever the case is. That also means those little tick marks that we make on the number line. We want those to be evenly spaced since we're spacing our numbers evenly, correct? Okay. All right. Another thing that we want to remember as we go to the right. So as I go to the right on a number line, which is that direction, as I go to the right, my numbers should be getting greater. Do y'all see what I just did when I wrote down greater? What did I do? I capitalized the R because what does R match with? Right. If it's going to the right, it's going to be great, to quote Tony the Tiger. Okay. So make sure if we're going to the right, our numbers are getting bigger. Our numbers are getting greater. Okay? So we're going to do the same thing for the left. When we go to the left, what do you think has to happen? All right. We are going to go towards the negatives. All right. We might not get to the negatives. The goal is our numbers should be getting less. Know what I mean? I'm always about making that connection, because a lot of times things are alphabetically in order, or there's some sort of little trick that we can look for to help us with just some memorization techniques, okay? So if we're going to the right, it's getting great. If we're going to the left, it's getting less. All right? So let's kind of draw out a number line here. All right, I'm just going to put some spacer marks on here. I'm not putting any numbers on there yet. Okay. All right, now I do want to make sure that I have positive numbers on here and negative numbers on here. Since I'm going to have positive and negative on here, what do you think I'm going to need? Somewhere kind of start maybe even towards the middle, okay? Yeah, I'm going to want to put a 0. And it doesn't have to be exactly in the middle. Mine happened to work out that way. But we do want it close to the middle potentially. All right. So let's go to the right first, because I think it's always easier to count up than count back. Don't y'all agree? So if we're going to the right, after 0, what number comes after 0? Positive numbers are going to start us off. What do we want to start with? Okay, let's just start with 1. Let's keep our number line simple. 1, then 2, then. All right, very good. So we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. Now, what happens a lot of times when we're going to the left, when we get to our negatives, since it's getting less, people want to count backwards. But we're not actually counting backwards. I'm not going to start at 30. Can I put a 30 next to my 0? No, so I can't like put, oh, negative 30, negative 29. We can't do that. What has to go next to 0? Negative 1. So guys, I'm not counting backwards. I'm numbering backwards. I'm still counting in the same direction, aren't I? So negative 1, then negative 2, then negative 3, then negative 4. So remember, when you're doing those negatives, you're not counting backwards. You're just numbering backwards, okay? So slight difference there. Okay. All right. So some of the stuff that you're going to have to be able to do on your homework today is you're going to have to be able to fill in a number line. All right, so it's going to have empty spaces. Do you think you can look at a number line and figure out what's missing? I'm pretty confident if you can draw one out on your own, you can probably fill in some missing stuff pretty easily. All right. Another thing it might ask you is, what numbers are between negative 1 and 3? Can someone tell me what numbers are between negative 1 and 3? Okay. All right. If I have negative 1 and 3, is negative 2 in between those? 0, 1, and 2. So if I'm looking at negative 1 and 3, in between we have 0, 1, and 2. So on your homework, if it's asking you for what's in between them, you're just going to list those numbers out, separating them by commas. Okay? All right, the other thing, and I actually want to write this down because it's super important we are able to do this. All right, we're going to have to be able to graph some positive and negative numbers. So let's say I wanted to graph negative 2, 3, and negative 6, all right? Now, this is really, really simple, but sometimes, because it's math, we like to try to make it hard. We don't want to do that, right? All right. So if I'm going to graph negative 2, can someone go up to the board and show me where is that going to go? Where is negative 2 going to need to be? Emily, come on, point it out for me. All right, perfect. So what Emily just pointed out is this is my negative 2. All right. Now, when I'm graphing it, guys, this is really important. I'm not going to put my dot on that 2. That would look a little silly, wouldn't it? Where do you think my dot needs to go? Brandon? On the actual line. Am I putting it up above the line? No. Put it on that line, please, okay? So there's my negative 2. Mikayla, can you jump up there and show me where 3 goes? So this is very similar to when we graph on a coordinate plane. The only thing is we're not having to look at the x and the y. We can just look at this x, this horizontal axis, and put the dot on there. It's a lot easier. Cameron, real quick, show me where I'm going to put my negative 6. Oh, y'all, I just realized I don't have a negative 6 on here. Last class, I guess I drew a longer line. So let's change that to negative 4. Does that work? All right. So Cameron, now that that's up there, can you show me where negative 4 is going to go? Sorry. Perfect. And where's that dot going to go? Point out exactly where I got to put the dot. All right. On the number line. Don't put it above it. Make sure you're putting it on that line, okay? Don't put it up above the line. Put it on the line, okay? Are there questions about number line? It's pretty straightforward. Okay. So the other thing, we talked about number line. The other thing we want to talk about today are inequalities. The other thing we want to talk about are inequalities. Okay. Now, yesterday we watched a little PBS video about integers, right? And you remember they were telling us integers are kind of like those YouTube likes, right? Positive numbers are the thumbs up, negative numbers are the thumbs down. All right? So we're going to kind of keep that in mind as we're doing inequalities because I think it's a really good way, especially when we're comparing negative numbers, to think about them, okay? So for inequalities, we have 2 symbols. The first symbol looks like that, and this is called the less than symbol. Okay. All right, we'll add a little bit more to that later on, but for right now, we just want to make sure that we can get that direction correct. All right, less than. There are a couple of ways that we can remember which symbol is less than. All right, if I'm reading this, like when I read a paper, I go from the left to the right, correct? So when I'm reading this math sentence, I'm going to start with that little pointy side, right? Keyword there. The little pointy side. Because the small side came first because it is less. And then over here, this is like the big open side. Do y'all agree with that? Big open side, because that's the greater side. Since the small side came first, that means it is less than. All right, another way to remember that, and it's going to be hard for me to show this on the paper, but, all right, so if I make that shape with my hand, what shape is that? An L. All right, do y'all see how that matches with that L right there? Okay, and what happens when I turn that L to the side? Do y'all see my less than sign, how I kind of created that less than? Boop, boop, boop. There's my chomp chomp. There it is. Okay? So, less than L also matches with its inequality when I turn it to the side. Isn't that kind of cool? All right. Now, obviously, is an inequality symbol going to look like a G? No, but if we can tell which one is less than, then the opposite would obviously be greater than. So let's draw that one out. So if it's going the other direction, this is called my greater than sign. All right, now it's really important for us to be able to distinguish which one is which. Like, I know that from the past, you know that the open mouth, the alligator eats the big number, or Pac-Man eats the big number, correct? We know that because we want to be able to read these things accurately. So when I'm reading a problem, I want to be able to say, this number over here is less than this number over here. Or this number over here is greater than this number over here. So in fact, we can even write that out here. What this means is the small number, the small number is less than the pointy side, the big number. And here we have the big number is greater than the small number. Each time, do y'all see how my alligator is eating the big number? My inequality is opening up to the big number. But when we read this, I know that that small, less than, because it forms that L, big, and this means big, greater than, small. Okay. All right, guys, we're going to look at some examples. Let's compare. All right, we're going to compare 8 and negative 3. Let's compare 8 and negative 3. Okay. Yes?
Wait, how we compare this? Is it supposed to be the closest one that can have?
All right. When we're comparing them, we're going to use an inequality. So in between these, I'm going to either place a less than symbol, or I'm going to place a greater than symbol. So in this case, if I'm looking at 8, is 8 greater than negative 3, or is 8 less than negative 3? Dina? Greater than. So which direction should be facing my 8? The little pointy side, or the big open mouth where Pac-Man's going to eat it? The big open mouth. All right, remember, we always want our Pac-Man eating the bigger number. All right? If I'm going to read this, I'm not going to say 8, open mouth, negative 3. I'm going to say 8 is greater than negative 3. I want you to be able to read those out loud accurately. Okay? What if we had negative 86 and negative 24? So guys, this is where I really like that video we watched yesterday talking about the YouTube likes and dislikes. So this would be like 86 thumbs downs, and this would be like 24 thumbs downs. Which one of those is actually, I mean, neither one are that great because they both got thumbs downs, but which one is technically the better of the bad? Blake? The 24. So which one do we want our Pac-Man eating? The 24. Okay, now which symbol is that? It's the less than symbol. We chose which direction it goes because we wanted it to eat the bigger number, which in this case was negative 24. But when I read it, it's negative 86. Remember, that forms my L, doesn't it? That's where I see that L, so that negative 86 is less than negative 24. Is that a true statement? Yeah, because that negative 86 is going to be much further to the left. Okay. Let's do one more. Let's do -5 and 2. -5 and 2. Okay. Which symbol do I need here? Is -5 less than 2 or is -5 greater than 2? Dina? -5 is greater than 5 is less than 2 because, remember, the negative is always going to be smaller. Is Pac-Man eating the bigger number here? Yeah, 2 is positive, which means it's greater. Greater is always better than, positive is always going to be greater than a negative. And when we read that out loud, since it's -5 with the pointy side, that's -5 less than 2. Also, did that form my L? If I look at it and turn it, is that an L? Yes. Okay. That's another good way to remember that that's the less than symbol. Okay. All right. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to pass out some note cards. Everyone is going to get a note card with a number on it. All right. And we're going to basically create a human number line. We're going to start by just doing a couple of people in here, spacing them out. And then we're going to go out into the hallway and see if you can space yourself, all of you out on your own. Okay. And then we're going to start on our homework.